Welcome to the College Investor Audio Show, where we talk about the biggest issues impacting millennial money, from student loan debt to side hustles to building wealth. We will show you how to get out of debt so that you can build real wealth for the future.
Welcome to the show today. So glad you're here as we talk about how President Biden has already forgiven more student loans than any previous president. So let's dive into this a little bit. So Biden has proposed forgiving $10,000 per borrower. The president does not have the legal authority to forgive student loans on his own, though. However, he's already forgiven more than $25 billion in student loans using student loan forgiveness programs that have previously been authorized by Congress. So here's how you can learn how to qualify for all of these loan forgiveness options. Let's first take a look at the borrower defense to repayment. So the Trump administration delayed processing of borrower defense to repayment discharge applications for years and tried to change some of the rules, tried to implement partial discharges and all of that stuff. Now, the borrowers filed a class action lawsuit to the U.S. Department of Education seeking an end to further delays in proper processing of their applications for discharge. Sweet versus Cardona is one of those cases. The Biden administration decided to settle this lawsuit, and the settlement will provide billions of dollars of discharges to about 200,000 borrowers who attended 153 colleges. You can see the full list of colleges at thecollegeinvestor.com. We actually have a link to those. It will also remove related derogatory information from the borrower's credit histories, which is huge. Borrower defense to repayment applications that have not yet been processed will be processed in a timely manner, whatever that means, according to a schedule specified in the settlement agreement. The borrower defense to repayment provides for the cancellation of a borrower's federal student loans when the college violated federal or state laws or engaged in a substantial misrepresentation concerning the borrower's student loans or the educational services paid for using the student loans. If a borrower qualifies for the borrower defense to repayment discharge, the borrower's federal student loans will be canceled and all previous payments refunded to the borrower. Whoa! Although this lawsuit concerns borrowers who previously submitted an application for the borrower defense to repayment discharge, eligible borrowers can continue to submit applications at a link we have set up for you at thecollegeinvestor.com. The Biden administration has also approved other categories of borrower defense to repayment discharge claims, including $500 million to 18,000 borrowers who attended ITT Technical Institute and $1 billion to 72,000 borrowers by rescinding the Trump administration's partial relief formula. Borrowers who attended DeVry University, Maranello Schools of Beauty, and Corinthian colleges have also qualified for the borrower defense to repayment. Whenever we talk about student loan forgiveness, we love to talk about Public Service Loan Forgiveness, or PSLF. On October 6, 2021, the Biden administration announced a limited PSLF waiver that is in effect through October 31st of 2022. The limited PSLF waiver counts all payments made by borrowers, including late and partial payments and payments made in any repayment plan toward PSLF. To qualify, borrowers of loans in the FFEL program must consolidate those loans into a federal direct consolidation loan before the deadline. In addition, all borrowers must file a PSLF form using the PSLF help tool before the deadline. Borrowers of FFELP loans must consolidate their loans first, then file a PSLF form both before the deadline. About 22,000 borrowers received immediate loan forgiveness because of this change, and about 550,000 borrowers will eventually become eligible for federal student loan forgiveness because of this change. About 145,000 borrowers have qualified for $8 billion in student loan forgiveness under the limited PSLF waiver as of early June 2022. In addition, more than 19,000 borrowers have qualified for $1.5 billion in PSLF and TEPSLF forgiveness without needing the limited PSLF waiver as of the end of May 2022. The U.S. Department of Education also implemented an automatic data match with U.S. Department of Defense records to identify borrowers who were eligible for PSLF due to their military service. Very cool. The Biden administration is also reviewing previously denied applications for PSLF to identify processing errors that unfairly denied borrowers the loan forgiveness to which they are entitled. Now we can move on to closed school discharges. So if a college closed while the student is enrolled or within 180 days of the student's withdrawal, the student may be eligible for a closed school discharge of the federal student loans if they are unable to complete their education through a teach-out or by transferring credits to another school. The Biden administration provided $1.1 billion in closed school discharges to 115,000 borrowers who attended ITT Technical Institute, and this is in addition to the borrowers who attended this college and qualified for a borrower defense to repayment discharge. Now, we move on to total and permanent disability discharge. If a borrower is totally or permanently disabled, they also might qualify to have their federal student loans discharged. There are 3 ways to qualify for a total and permanent disability (TPD) discharge by demonstrating an inability to engage in substantial, gainful activity. Department of Veterans Affairs (VA) determination of a service-connected disability that is 100% disabling. Social Security Administration or SSA disability status determination with a next disability review scheduled for 5 or more years after the most recent disability status determination. This applies to either Social Security Disability Insurance, SSDI, or Supplemental Security Income, SSI. You can also qualify with a doctor's certification of a severe disability that has lasted or is expected to last for at least 5 years, or which is expected to result in death. If the TPD discharge is based on the SSA determination or doctor's certification, there is a 3-year post-discharge monitoring period during which the borrower cannot have earned income that exceeds the poverty line for a family of 2. Otherwise, the repayment obligation will be reinstated. The U.S. Department of Education is performing a data match with VA and SSA records to implement the TPD discharge automatically for eligible borrowers. That's nice. This provided $5.8 billion in discharges to 323,000 borrowers automatically. The Biden administration has also restored eligibility for $1.3 billion in TPD discharges for 41,000 borrowers whose loans were reinstated due to a failure to provide or file paperwork during the pandemic. Okay, whenever we talk about student loans, the payment pause and interest waiver has to come up. So the paused payments under the student loan moratorium count as though they were made toward the 120 payment requirement for PSLF and the 240 or 300 payment requirements for the forgiveness after 20 or 25 years of payments under income-driven repayment or IDR. So by the time the payment pause and interest waiver expires on August 31st, 2022, maybe, borrowers of eligible loans will have benefited from 30 months of paused payments. That's really nice. That's a quarter of the requirement for PSLF and 10 to 12.5% of the requirement for IDR forgiveness. That's the equivalent of about $30 billion to more than 1 million PSLF borrowers and about $60 billion to more than 8 million IDR borrowers. This forgiveness has not yet been received by most eligible borrowers, so it's not really part of the overall $25 billion figure we talked about earlier. Only federal education loans held by or on behalf of the U.S. Department of Education are eligible for this forgiveness, by the way. This includes all loans in the Direct Loan Program and certain FFELP loans for which title was transferred to the U.S. Department of Education or a guarantee agency. Commercially held FFELP loans, most federal Perkins loans, and private student loans are not eligible. Borrowers of commercially held FFELP loans and federal Perkins loans can make them eligible by including them in a federal direct consolidation loan. It's a little late for this, given that the student loan moratorium is set to expire on August 31st, 2022, but perhaps the payment pause and interest waiver will be extended a 7th time. Let's talk about tax status of student loan forgiveness now. So the American Rescue Plan of 2021 made all student loan forgiveness and discharge tax-free through December 31st, 2025. Without this change, the IRS would have treated the amount forgiven as taxable income. Yikes! To the borrower. It's as though someone gave the borrower money to repay their student loans. The amount forgiven is reported to the borrower on IRS Form 1099-C. The federal government gives with one hand while it taketh back with the other. But because of this change, borrowers do not need to worry about the tax liability associated with the loan forgiveness. President Biden has called for this tax-free status to be made permanent, which is definitely something we'll keep our eye on. Thanks so much. That is our show for today. Man, that was a lot of information to pack into like 10 and a half minutes. If you have any questions, you can always go back and re-listen to this. You can find the article posted as well at thecollegeinvestor.com. Just copy and paste the title of this podcast right into the search bar, and you can dive deep to all of this really interesting student loan forgiveness stuff that we like to talk about here on the College Investor Audio Show. Follow us on social media. We're like everywhere. We'd love to get to know you, and we'll talk to you again real soon on the next podcast.